Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew, and I'm presenting my project on where I use deep learning to extract title and author information from research publications. This was part of a class I did with Professor Zoran at Harvard Extension School. In this presentation, I go into more detail about how exactly I did this presentation. So research publications, follow a pretty standard layout format, and I thought that this would be a interesting project where I can use the outline that these documents or the layout that they have to extract information, structured information from there. And the way and a lot of these informations are published on sites like ARXIV, Google, Facebook. It's all over the web, and what I'm doing is I'm sort of analyzing these documents the way a human would analyze them. So I first take these PDFs. It's not a text analysis method. I convert these images into I convert these PDFs into images, and then I label it. In this case, I hand label them, and then train it using a library, and then use that for object segmentation. So I'm using a library called MaskRCNN, and this is a pretty recent library, and it is about 2018, so you can sort of say it's pretty state of the art. And in this particular case, I'm using a Keras and TensorFlow implementation on this. And what I did was it was all manually, the data set that I used was all manually acquired. I went to these sites and downloaded the docs, and then used this tool called VGG Image Annotator to draw labeling boxes around these images, and I labeled different areas according to what they are. For example, the top box is a title, and the bottom four boxes are people information, and I'm annotating them. So this is an open source tool called VGG Image Annotator. So what happens is once you do that, you can, after you annotate it, you can then download a file from that website where it's used for the annotation, and it basically specifies all the different areas along with the different attributes associated with those files. For example, I have different areas here. One of them is a people area, which is that basically denotes that as an author, and it shows a rectangle on where exactly that box is pointed at here. So I want to go into some detail on the code I used, or what I did to actually, what did I actually do to build this. And my code consists of really three pieces here. So let me just open up my library here. Yes. So I have a file called process_ARXIV. The purpose of process ARXIV is to convert PDF documents to JPEG files. And what I do is I just extract the first page because I don't really care about any pages down the line. So I just use the first page. I extract the first page, and I convert that and I put them into this folder called data. And I have two folders, a training folder and a validation folder. This is train, and you can see I have all my training information here, along with that JSON file, which is the annotation file that I downloaded from the annotation tool. Similarly, I have a validation file, a validation folder. Okay, and The next file that I want to show you is this file called ARXIV. So this is the code that's really responsible for the training. And it's and most of the code that I use here is actually based on other code that I found on the internet that was actually used to detect balloons. So I used that as my starting point, and I adapted that code for my use case. So what really needs to have, I mean, the way this framework is structured is that you need to implement a class that extends from the utils.dataset class, which is provided by the framework, and you need to implement some methods here called load, in this case, load ARXIV, which basically loads the data. And I'm in this function, I load the data, load the annotations in here. And using that information that's loaded, we generate a mask out of that. So this mask information is what is used to train the model. And the training, the model is, pretty much deferred to the framework to do the actual training. But you can sort of see here that we load in the training data set and the validation data set, and then use that to launch our training. So when so this code is what I kicked this off to run the training, and I want to show you one more file, which is the Jupyter notebook. And I use the Jupyter notebook for two reasons. One is I use it to visualize the annotations that the tool generated for us. Basically over seeing how the code in my implementation, the ARXIV data set, how does that code generate masks of those annotations? So that's what this piece of code does here. So we're basically displaying some sample images with the generated mask, and showing how it's actually overlaid on top of the data. So this gives me some confidence that I have coded my my training class correctly. So this is the data visualization piece, and here also, this is a bigger version of that same image. And in this particular case, I have that PDF, the publication here, and I have the two different masks that have been generated overlaid on top of that. So this is some code where we resize the images so that it sort of they have a consistent 1024/1024 size before we feed in the model. And this is how it looks like. We can see that here we have a little bit of a bounding box here because the image has been rescaled to fit into those dimensions here. And then the next piece I want to highlight is the actual inference. So the inference piece, assumes that you have a trained model. So I have in my particular case, I've trained the model on AWS, and I've downloaded the weights, and I've loaded the weights in here in the program. As you can see here, I am downloading the weights, or I have basically configured in the downloaded weights here, and then using that, I am running some random detections here. So I've used this to infer on a number of images, as you can see here, and it's doing a pretty good job, right? In this particular case, you can see that this is the title. If you look closer, you can see title and people information is a bit faint on the eye, but you can see it if you look carefully enough. It's kind of interesting that what the model does is the model seems to have generated a circular outline uh, to the text as opposed to the more straight boxes that I have when I annotated it. So that's kind of an interesting observation. These are some other images. Kind of again, you have this curved outline on the bounding boxes, but it's done a pretty good job of segmenting the information out. Again, this is one case where I see an error. This is not really author information, but it is incorrectly classified this box over here as author information. But I can understand why the model made that mistake, because this, in terms of size, it very closely resembles something like author information. Yeah, here's another example as well. So before I end this presentation, I want to quickly go through, what did I learn? Document analysis is a deep research area, and I was able to achieve very good performance with just a small data set. I just used 34 images for training, and it sort of showcases the power of transfer learning. There are a lot of good tools and services out there. This is sort of an emerging area, but there are a lot of services right now available where you can use that to label data. Another interesting thing that I found out during my research is that there is a new area called data programming, where you can sort of programmatically create labels. And this is a new big emerging area, because as you all know, with deep learning, you need a lot of data to do the training. Well, but with transfer learning, as I showed in this particular case, it's even with small data, you can achieve quite a lot. So what next? What I would really like to do is, I want to extract the sub regions that have been detected and feed it into a tool like OCR and convert that into text. So this is then you would have a full pipeline on doing image analysis on documents and actually extracting structured data from that. I would also like to build a more rigorous method on evaluating the effectiveness of the model. In this particular case, I just eyeballed the results, and the results look good by eyeballing. But of course, to be more scientific, we need to be more rigorous in our approach. The other thing is, I think we can be much more effective if we build some kind of multi-model that, in addition to using visual cues, we also use text to classify different areas in a document. Well, I had a lot of fun building this project, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.